Hi everybody, welcome to Sprague Woodturning. My name is Jim. If you haven't been here before, this is predominantly a turning channel where I show people each and every week how to make things on the lathe. This week we're going to be casting some walnuts. These are 2 walnut crotches and we're going to cast them in this orientation here and hopefully make a really cool hollow form. So but before we can do that, we've got to get these cleaned up and get them sized to our bucket. So let's do that. I'd like to welcome you all to the video. That is a little template that goes in the bottom of that white bucket. I've got templates for all of my casting buckets that I use, and that is a circle cutting jig, and I did shoot a video on this. If you want to make something similar to this, you can watch that and get some ideas. That is the hole that was drilled originally when I first roughed out these 2 crotch pieces. So, you know, we're able to use that again. And of course, these have got anchor seal on them, and the problem with trying to cast anything with anchor seal is that the epoxy is not going to stick to it, so you have to get rid of any anchor seal. And of course that anchor seal is like a wax that slows down the release of moisture, preventing cracking. That's the whole idea of it. But of course we definitely don't want to cast anything with that because the epoxy just will not stick to it. Once that's done, we're going to head over to the lathe, and here I've got the brass coated brush in the Jacob's chuck, and this does a really good job cleaning up the surface pieces of wood, and it will also give you a nice tooth for the epoxy to bond to the wood. So this is also a very crucial step. Yeah, there it is right there. And the other big thing is, before you do any casting, especially with all of this, the dust that we're creating here, it's important that it gets blown off so that that doesn't contaminate your epoxy mix. So I want to glue this piece in, so I'm using some hot melt glue to do that. And then of course there's our top piece going in. You'll note that there is some space around it, and that's there purposely so that the epoxy can flow around the top piece, and that way we don't have any airlocks, with use of the shims of course. All right, well hopefully that'll keep that from moving around. Let's mix up some resin. This week we're going to be using Artcast from Designer Epoxy. Now this was a little risky because I should be using a deep casting epoxy here, but I was kind of in a time crunch. Artcast is good to 1 inch deep. So there are parts of this where it's actually deeper than that. So, you know, we'll have to see how that goes later on in the casting here. And I've been waiting to use this titanium silver all by itself in a project. So this week is the week. But I'm going to throw a little twist in there. That looks awesome on its own, but the hypershift is going to make it even look better. And I mixed it quite strong, as you can see. Don't forget to scrape them sidewalls and the bottom of your bucket. Pretty cool looking color actually with that hypershift in there. Anyway, this is hopefully the one and only 1.5 liter that we'll have to put in here as soon as I get rid of some hot melt glue. Anyway, hopefully this is it, because this is a lot of Artcast in a small little casting. Well, almost the perfect amount. The problem is I know that that level is going to drop, so I got to mix more up. Bring it back when I'm ready. All right, here's another liter, and I know that that may seem a lot, but if you remember the last time I did one of these, the level dropped below the top piece, and then we ran into all kinds of issues. So I'm going to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Hopefully there's enough here where that won't happen again. And I do fully expect to see this with cracks. I'm hoping that it's not going to. I'm hoping there's enough wood in there to act as a heat sink, but I guess we'll find out tomorrow. All right, I got to quickly get this in the pressure pot and get some pressure in it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Well, all right, it is the next day. No thermal cracking on the top. That's encouraging, slightly. We'll We'll have to see what's down inside. Well, that sucks. I just needed a more solid surface. All right, what's your bets? Any thermal cracking? It looks good. It is wild to me how when the epoxy cures, it just, you know, it makes ridges and all kinds of stuff. It definitely got warm. I don't know, that possibly could be one. I don't know, maybe not. I don't know, what do you think? Think of her color. Should be really cool looking with that dark walnut. All right, let's get some centers and get it on the lathe. So I know that I say this quite often, but it is important to drill down past the epoxy and get into solid wood if you can. If there's wood in that area that you're drilling down, it's just safer when it's mounted on the lathe and pinch between centers. That's pretty good. Now that we've got the piece securely mounted between centers, we're using the number 3 Hercules from Hunter Tool Systems. And like it always is, we're going to strip this down. For some reason, I don't know why this footage wasn't coming in clear at the beginning. It was clear, and then it went kind of blurry, and then it comes back to clear in a second. So just camera doing camera things. Cameras sometimes I'm finding are a lot like epoxy. Epoxy has a mind of its own, and sometimes cameras do as well. So at this stage, we've got a successful casting, which is really awesome, especially since, you know, the next day you can work on things like this when you're using Artcast. That's the big bonus with using Artcast or the Pro Series. But of course, they're limited in how much depth you can pour, so that's the only drawback on them. And 1-to-1s are typically a little thicker to mix than 2-to-1s, so that's another drawback with it. I could have probably put this in the vacuum chamber for a little while before it went into the pressure pot. The only problem when you're dealing with Artcast or the Pro Series, larger volumes like this will really thermally set quite quickly. So, you know, I was really worried. I didn't mention it on camera, but, you know, it was already starting to get warm in the bucket when I put it in the pressure pot. So that's why I did not use the vacuum chamber, because I'm sure there's going to be some people wondering about that. Regardless, there was no need for it anyway, because I got a really good solid casting. There was very, very little stuff to fix in this. So we got lucky this time around. The next time we do something like this, it may have tons of thermal cracking in it. So, you know, if you've got the time, use the proper epoxy that you should be using. And like I said earlier, I should have been using deep cast here, but I was under a time constraint. It worked for us, but, you know, the next 10 castings that you do that are similar to this, you might get thermal cracking in 8 of them. So, you know, that's just the way it is sometimes. So we're just cleaning this off a little bit. My intention is to put a glue block on the bottom of this. So I'm just kind of prepping the bottom area here. And after a while, we'll be able to flip this around, get that on there. And then once you've got your glue block on there and established and it's mounted in the chuck, then, you know, it becomes a lot safer to turn. A good practice is to mount, when you first initially mount these pieces between centers, stand to the side, dial the speed down if you have a variable speed lathe like I do, and dial up the speed until it starts to vibrate, and then back it off, and there's your turning speed. I mean, on something like this, I wouldn't go over 1,000 on it. This is 750 is what this is sitting at. So the sooner you can get a tenon turned on the bottom of this or get a glued on tenon like I like to use, the safer this will be. Just remember, never stand in front of the piece when you first initially turn it on, just in case something bad happens, because it can. But you know, accidents do happen, and they certainly happen on the lathe as well. I actually have a large piece of burl that's bolted to the wall in front of my lathe as a reminder of what can go wrong. One of these days I'll have to show that again. I think I've already showed it before, but essentially I was turning a burl between centers and it came apart. And it hit me so hard in the chest that it knocked me off my feet. And luckily I was not injured, but it certainly could have gone the other way. So always be aware of the piece that you've got mounted on the lathe. And you know, I find over the years, sounds are a big indicator that something's not right. So listen, and once you've done this for a while, you'll listen and you'll say, okay, that's a strange sound. Turn the lathe off and see what's going on. Here I'm just getting the bottom ready here for the glue block, just using the Ellsworth gouge here. The bottom of this and the top of this is all wood, so this is certainly a place to use the bowl gouge, just to show you that I haven't forgotten my bowl gouge skills. And then we're going to sand this with 60 grit and get a glue block on the bottom of this. An end grain glue block, I might add. Much stronger. So we're just going to take a little brief break away from this. Stephanie wanted me to basically cover my dust collection setup here. This mount that's up on my ceiling, that came from Busy Bee Tools many, many years ago. I don't know if it's still available or not. The great thing about it is you can adjust it here for moving this in and out. There's a little knob right up there. You can unscrew that, and then this whole unit can go up and down. And along with that, there's also an adjustment there that you can actually, you know, kind of twist this in and out and set it at a certain spot. And then of course there's also an adjustment there where you can slide this in and out. And another one there. The other thing, so anyway, I've got a lot of stuff hanging off of it, lights and rolled up extension cords. So I had to put in some baling twine here because this joint was starting to fail because of the weight. So anyway, it's just one of them farm fixes, you know, for now. The other thing that's important is you got to make sure that your dust collection system is grounded. Now, this entire system that I've got here is made with 4-inch conduit. So, you know, you can't, it's not groundable because it's plastic. But the thing is, with all the dust rushing in through here, you know, it definitely, sometimes when I touch this, I can get quite a spark off this just from the friction. And so anyway, the way the setup works in here is I've got a blast gate up there. And then of course it goes all the way around. There's the door I walk into my shop. And I've got a couple of leads that drop down over there. And then of course that's the garage door tracking up here. So I put up another pipe, and of course that gives me dust collection basically in the center of my workshop, which of course my my sander is attached to right now. So this all of this copper wire goes all along the entire system, and of course there's another drop there. Do yourself a favor, buy the expensive blast gates. Those are garbage. You'll get a lot of leakage past them, and then eventually sometimes they won't close all the way because of all the stuff that gets bound up in them. And along with that, I've had to screw this one shut so it would stay together. The other thing too is these are really good clamps, so get these for your system. Anyway, it comes into my dust collector and air compressor room. I put those filters up there so that, I mean, you can appreciate how much air this thing is going to be moving when it's running. So this is a double bag dust collector from Busy Bee. And anyway, it can move a lot of air, so it's best to have some sort of a filter system like that that can blow air out onto the workshop, and hopefully the majority of it's going to be filtered if there's any dust in here. And there certainly is. I mean, this is a very dusty room, so I try to blow this out fairly regularly. It's due right now because the air compressor's got a fair bit of dust on it. But you know, so it goes all the way back to here, and then it's grounded right here on the machine, and then of course the machine through the ground and the wall. If you don't have this in place with a conduit system like this, a plastic conduit system, you definitely run the risk of an explosion. And I'm telling you right now, if that dust collector was full of dust and there was an explosion, it would lift the roof right off the top of this workshop. So it's not something to mess around with. So make sure that you always ground your dust collection system. Now, of course, if this is all metal up here, then this isn't necessary. As far as I know, it isn't necessary because, of course, the metal can get a ground. But there's so much static in this that, especially in the wintertime. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell. Hopefully people find that interesting. Yeah, you can kind of see how it's not a right angle anymore. So we need to tighten that up a little more. I might even buy a new one on the other end when we move. All right, let's get back to this. So all we're going to do now is trim this waste block up so that it fits properly in the chuck. And again, it's short enough that the top of the jaws are going to be resting on the bottom of the casting to take away the vibration that you may get. And I think the size of this is probably right in the middle between being totally closed and totally open with my chuck. Well, it's the first time I've really talked to you about this. What are you thinking? I love, love, love the look of this. That is just some pretty amazing stuff. And you know, I know that the titanium silver on its own is actually quite nice, but with that hypershift added in there, it's just really adding another dimension to it, which is the idea. Okay, so you know, we're only really working with this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to save. I mean, we may be able to keep some of this as a collar, but you know, you can see that it's not even, and I'm sure that it's not going to be any better the further we go into this. So at this stage, I mean, this could be a bowl, get a couple bowls of it, but you know, I'm definitely doing the hollow form thing on this. I think that will showcase the crotch figure. I've got to be really careful here because this crotch, when I cut it with the chainsaw, wasn't perfectly centered, so it was bigger on this side. So that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. I don't know. I'm just going to keep whittling this away. I'm definitely going to just knock this corner off and keep going down here. And I don't know, we just might end up with one of these shapes with a collar on the top. I don't know. I'm just going to whittle it away and we'll go from there. So as you watch me work this piece, I'll cover last week's video. One of the great things about doing these voiceovers is that, you know, you can address things that were in the comments in the video. And I do really appreciate everybody that does comment in my videos because it does help me with the algorithm. So please do that. And of course, you'll also be entered into the bowl giveaways. One of the big questions was, you know, why didn't I glue the pods down? If I had glued the pods down and not use the cover on the top of this to hold them in place, yes, I do believe that we would have had a lot more green show up in amongst those pods. And that was the Banksia pod enclosed bowl for those who are trying to remember and can't. Just showing how thin those shavings are. Shear cutting, absolutely awesome, but the gouge, really nice surface. So yeah, If I could get a redo on that, I would glue those pods to the bottom of the bucket, and then when we injected the green, I don't think that there would have been hardly any movement, and I'm pretty confident that it would still be there in the end. Another one was people were a little disappointed that I basically turned away the center pod. And when I initially cast that piece, I didn't know for sure exactly what it was going to be. I didn't know if it was going to be a hull form, a bowl set, a lidded dish. I didn't really know. So I didn't want to be limited by putting a spacer in the center of this and then, okay, then I have to go in this direction. So that's why I put that basically sacrificial pod in there. It is still visible in the bottom of the piece, but yeah, for the most part, it's gone at the top. The other thing is, thanks again for the recommendations for the Waterlux. I was not aware of it, but if you're in Canada, you can go right to waterlux.com and you can order from them directly. It kind of threw me off because, it said look for a distributor in your country. And so I didn't think that they shipped to Canada, but they certainly do. So thanks again for lots of suggestions on where to get it. I believe that the price on the Waterlux website is the best that you're going to find. So right now I'm kind of struggling. Like if you know me, you know that I don't really care for what I call resin ghosting. And that's the resin that's sitting on top. The resin or the epoxy that's sitting on the very top of this is spectacular. And I'm like, I got to try and incorporate this somehow. And I could have parted that off and at that point made a lidded dish, if you will. But, I'm usually not a fan of having epoxy sitting on top of wood like this. The only thing that really makes this doable for me is the fact that it's strongly mixed and you can't really see the walnut beneath it. So we've got that really cool looking epoxy look on the top of this, but you don't really have the ghosting that you normally would see with a lot of the pieces that I typically do. And one more thing about the Banksia pod enclosed bowl from last week. I thanked Ernie last week for sending me the pods to the first Banksia pod vase that I made, but it wasn't Ernie. Ernie sent me the Bunyan nut pine petals, and we actually did pine cone petals, and we did a video on that. It was actually Tim Mills. Tim Mills sent me the stabilized Banksia pods. So sorry about that, Tim. I'm hoping you're still watching. And anyway, it was Tim Mills that sent me those and not Ernie. So sorry about that. Another great thing with the channel is the membership is growing. I think we're 60 members and climbing. So thanks to the new members. I do appreciate that 100%. And of course, if you want to join and help support the channel, there's either a membership button or a join button below the video. And for $2.99 a month, I'll try to give you some extra content and make it worth your while. Hopefully it's worth your while. So I'm relatively happy with the way this looks on the outside. There'll be some final tweaking afterwards, but for the most part, that's the shape that I'm going to go with. So we're going to drill this piece out. It's certainly drilled a lot easier than the Banksia pods. I'll tell you that right now, because at least there was no smoke coming off the drill this week. Anyway, I think this finished at 2 inches in diameter. That's typically the size that I like to finish the openings with. Thereabouts, anyway. All right, we're all set up and ready for hollowing. This is the retrofit tool from Hunter Tool Systems, and that is my laser that you see right here. Right now, the wall thickness is probably set at, I don't know, 3/4. We'll close it up as we go. I'm going to go with the large boring bar for now. We'll have to switch that out here in a little bit. I did try to tap this out at the end, and I did use a 1/2 inch tap. That's the largest tap that I have. but it's too small. There's not enough for the threads to grab, so I'm gonna have to go up to 9/16 inch, and I don't have a bolt for that anyway, so I need to get a tap and a bolt so that I can sort that out. But in the meantime, this will prevent the rig here from slipping out of the captive bars here in the back. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. Let's do it. Really interesting to see what people are going to say about this. So the goal right here is to open this up so that we don't have to keep shutting the lathe off to remove these shavings. And of course, it's important that you do that regularly, because what can happen is the shavings can grab the tool and pick it up and slam it down on the tool rest if you get too much of a build-up. So be aware of that. And of course, using the retrofit tool here, because it's got a carbide cutter on it, you don't have to sharpen it. And you know, it lasts forever. This is the same cutter that I've had on here for I don't know how many hollowing rigs here, or hollow forms that I've done now. So, you know, I'm really glad that I've got this in my inventory. The teardrop cutter is fine. The problem with the teardrop cutter is, of course, you have to sharpen it more often. So you have to stop what you're doing and go over to the sharpener and sharpen it. So anytime you can avoid that, I see that as, you know, a real benefit and not a production waster. Time at the grinder is time away from the lathe, so that's a production waster of time. So if you can eliminate that and streamline the process, it'll be a lot better. There is the teardrop cutter. As mentioned, you can get that right from oneway.ca. I really like using this on the bottom ends of these forms. The retrofit tool can do that as well, but I don't know, I just find that the teardrop cutter with that flat cutter, it's easier to come across the bottom and then up the little side like I am there. And then of course you run out of room quite quickly, and then, or not out, you don't run out of room, you just can't, because it's a straight boring bar, you can't go any further with it. But I definitely like having that in my inventory as well. So as far as the sale of the house is concerned, it's been pretty quiet. This time of year is typically fairly quiet, but we're hoping for that to pick up here next month anyway, hopefully. My wife and I we're stressed out about it. I'm pretty sure I'm dealing better with it than my wife is. My wife has always been a worrier. So anyway, the sooner we can get this sold, the better, I guess. There will probably be some different content as far as when the house sells and we have to leave. I am going to try and get some videos ahead, but I'm telling you, it's tough to do. But I am going to try and get some videos ahead so that, you know, hopefully we don't have any interruptions in the channel. That is certainly one of the main things that I'm trying to avoid here, because well, I need all the revenue I can get because this is going to be an expensive venture to move out east, and I'm certainly going to need every penny that we can get out of the sale of the house, and of course the ads revenue from my channel. So again, thank you for watching my videos. I really do absolutely appreciate it. And you know, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do that so that we can get more people on the channel and I can give some more stuff away. But I do intend on shooting a video with the new workshop, the plans for the new workshop, and basically what we're going to be dealing with. One of the things that I'm kind of really struggling with is how I'm going to set up my dust collection system in the new workshop. The way it is in my current workshop is fine, but if I want to get more drops to the other side of my workshop, keeping in mind that, you know, my workshop is going to be 50 feet across the front of it. So, I mean, we got quite a ways to go. I should mention that that is the bent boring bar, and we're using the double bent boring bar before that. So anyway, I definitely want dust collection on the other side, but, you know, I don't know if I'm a big fan of running those pipes all the way around the outside perimeter and then bringing them in. Keeping in mind that you're going to have lights there too. So I was actually contemplating on putting that conduit up in the attic of the new workshop and then have drops come through the ceiling and then just hook onto them and go. It certainly would give a cleaner look, but if you ever get a blockage, it could be an absolute nightmare to try and go up in the attic and figure out exactly where the blockage is. So I don't know. But anyway, I definitely want to shoot that video and get the plans up on the screen and show you what we're going to do. Not exactly sure about tool layout and all of that business. I don't even know if I can do that prior to going there and seeing the space. You know, it's just something that I think that I'm going to have an issue with until I'm standing in the workshop and saying, okay, I want to put that lathe there, I want to put tape saw there, and so on and so on and so on. So anyway, I never really showed the inside of this because I can't light the inside of it to show it to you. So I started sanding from 60 and I went all the way to 180 because the plan is to do an epoxy coat on the inside and the outside of this piece. So once that's done, we'll be able to trim up the outside. Now, of course, when you're tooling and machining wood like this, this would be the second day. I didn't do this all in one day, by the way. It's going to move a little bit. So I was working the inside, so I wasn't really all that concerned about it. Now we're just going to move to the outside, give it a final little trimming. Some of that tension comes out of the wood, and it's going to cause the piece to move a little bit. I didn't use the steady rest at all on this piece. It wasn't very far off the headstock, so I didn't have a lot of concern that it was going to come off the lathe, but it certainly could have. But anyway, once we've got this final little trimming done, we'll be able to sand this from 60 to 180 again on the outside. And then of course, we'll get our first resin coat on, or epoxy coat. So if you do have a topic that you would like for me to cover, please leave a comment down below detailing exactly what you would like for me to cover. And I will do my best to see that happens, but no promises. I'm very knowledgeable in the wood turning aspect of it, so I can probably cover most of those comments. Stuff with craft shows too. I don't know. I'm a little out of touch because I haven't really done any craft shows prior to COVID. So I know that scene has changed up a little bit, but I certainly can cover a bit of that as well. All right, this is 3 ounces of the Pro Series, and while this looks really clean inside, I can't really get any finish down inside of it, so this is where the Pro Series will come in there. It'll come in and seal up all the inside, and then we'll do a resin coat on the outside of this as well. There, I'll leave that for about 5 minutes, and then we'll put it on the outside. This will be for the new people. That is a silicone barbecue brush. If you try to use a normal bristle brush to put epoxy on, I've learned the hard way that you're going to end up pulling out some of the hairs out of it, and it's going to be in your epoxy coat, which you definitely don't want. What do you think about that? Wow. That resin is something else. And I'll admit it, I think I like the fact that I left the top. Wow. That is something else. And the walnut, well, hey, ain't bad either. A little bit of crotch grain there. I don't see very many bubbles coming either, which is kind of funny. Anyway, I'm going to throw this back on the lathe, let it rotate for about another half hour or so. And I will throw this in the clean room where the heat is. And we'll get our first coat of Waterlux on this tomorrow. Well, all right, it's the next day. We got some bubble action happening there, which was fully expected. But it looks like there was a couple little spots here in the resin that were just kind of little holes in it. They're all filled in now. I'm actually really surprised that there isn't more bubbles on this walnut than what there is. And well, I actually really like the top. All right, so I'm gonna start sanding at 220 all the way to 800, and then we'll be able to get our first coat of gloss on. I should mention that I am using 3.5-inch dimple discs from sandpaper.ca. Absolutely love these discs. Check them out. Regarding the bubbles, I mean, this is black walnut, and black walnut can be quite porous, and usually it will create a lot of bubbles, and gladly there wasn't a whole lot the next day, so happy days for that. That's the Triple E buffing compound from the Beal buffing system, and that's Triple E as in the city of Tripoli, not 3 E's. And when that's done, we'll clean this up with some denatured alcohol and get our first coat of Waterlux on. All right, this is the first coat of Waterlux gloss. Well, there it is with its first coat of Waterlux. That resin is just amazing. Man. That titanium silver with that hypershift, just look at how it brings that alive. Just so much pearl effect in it. Absolutely love it. And if you know me, you know that I like contrasting colors. So that's why I went with light with the dark. Where's our crotch green hiding at? There it is there. Too bad it's on the bottom, not on the top. But I was a little worried about having them reversed, and there wouldn't be, the line would be further down near the bottom. So I think that was the right decision to do that. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. If there is a second coat, well, there will be a second coat. I'll just buff it and then clean it with the denatured alcohol and put the second coat on, and then we'll see it when we're doing the bottom. Beauty. Well, good morning, gorgeous. So if you've been having issues with dust getting in your finishes, then try what I did there. I've been doing that lately, and I thought it'd be interesting to show how I'm actually keeping the dust off these pieces. A box will work just fine too, but anyway, I thought I'd show that. Anyway, that's pretty much going to do it for the video here. The bottom was only sanded to 320. See, point in going any higher than that because there's no epoxy on the bottom. Thanks a lot for watching the video. I really do appreciate it, especially the ones that have watched it all the way through. Let's have a last little chat about this beautiful hull form. Well, what do you think about that? The rotating footage at the end when I light these pieces up should look pretty interesting. The star of the show is the resin. Epoxy, whatever you'd like to call it. Unfortunately, because we have this epoxy on the top, we can't really see the crotch grain that lies beneath. But here's what the bottom looks like. And as per normal, run out of time and finish has yet to be put on the bottom, but there's some really nice crotch grain. It's too bad that we don't have more of that in this piece. I mean, that's the whole idea of putting these crotches kind of natural edge to natural edge. The other thing too is there always is comments about it looks like a curling stone. You know what? I don't care. I really like the way this look. I like this profile, but I know there's going to be some curling stone comments, but whatever. I like it. I think it's beautiful. I should mention the size here, so I'll put the metric conversion up on the screen. This is 7 3/4 across at the widest. 5.5 inches to the top of the collar, and it's around 1/2 inch thickness thereabouts. This piece is for sale. If you are interested, send me an email to spraguewoodturning@gmail.com and I will disclose the price then, in case it's a gift. I really like this resin, and it really goes well with this dark wood, and we might see more of this in the future. I'm sure we will, actually. Don't forget to put Designer Epoxy in the comments down below to be entered into the 3-gallon giveaway at 120,000. Of course, that video will be next week. We're going to do the giveaway for my project, and we're going to do the 3-gallon giveaway from Designer Epoxy. So Designer Epoxy, you can embed it in a comment. It doesn't have to be separate. I know a lot of people are putting a comment and then they're putting a separate Designer Epoxy comment. You can embed that in your comment for my giveaway, and that's what I ask for people. If you're not aware of that, by putting a comment down below, you'll also be entered into my giveaway at 120,000 or every 5,000. Might switch that to every 10,000 here soon. But anyway, that will be next week. So please come on back for that. And along with that, don't forget to use code INLAYGEM with all of my sponsors. In particular, Designer Epoxy right now has 10% off your order, 10 free color bags, and free shipping within continental USA and Canada. So that's a fantastic deal. But all the links are in the description down below. So head on down there and put some money back in your pocket. Next week, I don't know exactly for sure what I'm going to do for the giveaway, so I've got some ideas, but I'm not going to give it away right now. So whatever it is, hopefully it's really cool. So please come on back for that next week. All right, that's it. Take care, stay safe. Don't forget the bell. Please share my videos with your friends. That is the largest way for me to build my presence here on YouTube. I would really appreciate it. And you guys are awesome. We'll see you next week.